Hello world and welcome to the next video. I want to talk about a portion of the CNN town hall with Joe Biden about police reform and violent protest. Now, as my opinion on many issues, I have a complicated opinion on because I am completely in favor of peaceful protest, but at the same time, I don't agree with vilifying the police and the police force. Now, concerning the protests in the wake of George Floyd and other civil unrest, there was a study of the protests, and it came to 93% of the tens of thousands of protests around the country were peaceful. Now, with tens of thousands of protests, if you have 7% that are not peaceful, well, that certainly does pose a problem. But the reason for the rhetoric to say that the majority of protests are peaceful is that 93% statistic. Now let's take a look at Joe Biden's response about the police and about violence.
Hello, Vice President Biden.
All right, Mayor.
Black parents across America need to know, how much different will the talk be with our sons and daughters about police interaction under your administration?
It'll be fundamentally different, but let me make it clear. One of the things people say, I know I understand, as my mother would say, come walk in my shoes for a mile and tell me you understand then. Very few white parents have to turn and say to their kid, once they get their license, make sure if you're pulled over, put both hands on top of the wheel. Don't reach for the glove box. Make sure you do whatever the police officer says. The vast majority...
That's certainly an unfortunate conversation that many black families feel like they have to have with their kids because of some of the crazy things that have happened. And it's sad that that conversation has to take place.
The majority of police are decent, honorable people. One of the things I've found is the only people who don't...
I would agree with that as well. You have to look and find the bad apples, right? Majority of people are trying to do the right thing and are trying to do their job correctly and follow the rules and to not hurt anyone when they don't have to, not to have to hurt someone when it's not necessary. Similarly, you can take that opinion and apply it to the protests as well, where you have to separate the bad apples, where you respect the good protests, the peaceful protests, who are trying to share a message about a problem that they are experiencing, while at the same time you can condemn the violent protests, which were in fact hijacked protests, about 7% of the protests around the United States.
Don't like bad cops more than we don't like them, are police officers. And so what we have to do is we have to have a much more transparent means by which we provide for accountability within police departments. As President of the United States, what I will do, I will nationally bring together police chiefs, police officers, the union people, the African-American leadership, the communities, the brown communities, the civil rights leaderships, to sit at the table and agree on basic fundamental things that have to be done.
In general, this is a good answer about finding out what the police force and police chiefs say can help to hold everyone accountable so that these problems don't occur. At the same time, politicians have been talking like this for a long time. So the question is, has it been enough? And perhaps it has not. So certainly you have to dig in and try to find out what can be done to hold the police force more accountable to reduce the incidences of all of this excessive force. Now, let's jump ahead in the interview when they're talking to a police chief about the violence.
This is Bill Barrett. He's a retired police chief of Wilkes-Barre and a member of the Wilkes-Barre City Council. He's a Democrat. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Chief, didn't I meet you when you were chief?
We did, sir.
That's what I thought. Looking at you like I know.
Good evening, Vice President Biden, Anderson. As mentioned, as retired police chief, I am very concerned about the violence taking place in our cities across this country, and especially concerned about the lack of respect shown towards law enforcement officers and military. Can you tell us what your plan is for addressing this situation and bringing our nation back together, sir?
First of all, protesting is one thing. A right to speak is one thing. Violence of any kind, no matter who it is coming from, is wrong, and people should be held accountable. Burning down automobile lots, smashing windows, setting buildings on fire. But here's the deal.
I would say absolutely. You're drowning out the message when you go to those violent extremes, and you're hurting people in many cases or damaging things. It should not be happening.
I've condemned every form of violence, no matter what the source is. No matter what the source is. The president has yet to condemn, as you've probably noticed, the far right and the white supremacists.
Now, for the record, on a few rare occasions, I do recall the president condemning the far right, but he frequently will roll it right back and change his mind in the same interview. And he'll have other interviews, where for some reason he specifically chooses not to state the condemnation. So his messaging is certainly unclear, and he certainly has stoked the violence in many cases, especially if you watch his rhetoric at rallies, where the people who really listen to him and respect him and like the guy, the people who like the president, when they listen to him at a rally, they really take his words to heart. And that's when he advocates for roughing people up, quote, like the good old days, was one of his statements. And he has many similar statements at his rallies.
And those guys walking around with the AK-47s and not doing a damn thing about them. This is absolutely, look, his own former press secretary, Kellyanne Conway, said, I'm paraphrasing, chaos and violence are good for our administration. They're good for us.
She was quoted as saying that would help them in an election if the violence gets worse.
The president talks about in Joe Biden's America. I got to remind him, he may be really losing it. He's president. I'm not the president. This is Donald Trump's America. You feel?
And that is one take that I've seen in a few places, which makes a lot of sense. Like, if the violence is bad, and you're saying that this would happen under an opposing administration, but it's happening under your administration, so like, you are in the realm of responsibility to do something and to make a change. So I think that's a really effective argument to say that, well, this is not Joe Biden's America. It is clearly Donald Trump's America at this moment. I've noticed similar arguments too, where something is happening in the current day, and the president says this is what would happen under socialism or something, under a Joe Biden administration. But if it's happening now, then Trump is socialist. So that doesn't make sense. He's assuming that it would be happening under a Biden administration, and he's claiming it would be socialist, which is not nearly true. Biden is not any way far left in that sense. But at the same time, to claim that the current day's problems are caused by socialism, you'd be kind of like attacking yourself and claiming yourself socialist. So I've seen that happen as well, which is not a great argument on behalf of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thank you for watching. If you like this coverage, please do like, comment, and the best thing you can do to support the channel is to subscribe. Thank you very much.